小门口这里已经全部被水。
Hello everyone. It began as a drizzle, harmless, almost gentle, the kind of rain children play in. But by dawn, the drizzle had become a torrent, pounding rooftops, filling streets, drowning the land. Within hours, rivers turned savage. Drainage systems cracked and failed. In Hubei's Xianfang County, entire neighborhoods dissolved into water. From the sky, villages looked like islands scattered in a muddy sea, only rooftops and treetops surviving above the flood. Panic spread faster than the waters. Mothers clutched children to their chests, eyes wide with terror. The elderly were hoisted onto shoulders as neighbors waded waist-deep through raging streets. But not everyone escaped. Those who could not flee in time were swallowed by the water, their cries blending with the thunder of collapsing bridges. Schools filled with water so quickly that books and desks floated past windows like ghosts of education. Buses were pinned against railings, cars spun in whirlpools. The grief began instantly. Families screamed names into the storm, names that were never answered. Fear was everywhere, grief was everywhere, and the flood showed no mercy. Across Brazil, televisions showed the images, and in São Paulo, Rio, and Manaus, people fell silent, chilled by the realization, this could be us. When the waters peaked, devastation revealed itself. Tens of thousands displaced, forced from homes in the dead of night with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Farmland lay beneath muddy waves, rice, corn, and vegetables drowned, livestock swept away. Farmers who had spent lifetimes on the land saw their futures washed away in a single storm. Infrastructure cracked and fell, bridges ripped from their foundations, highways split, roads vanishing under torrents. Hospitals flooded, their generators dead, their wards plunged into darkness. Power stations collapsed, communication towers failed, leaving villages silent and unseen. Rescue teams struggled, boats overturning in violent currents, helicopters fighting gusts to pluck survivors from roofs. From the air, Hubei no longer looked like a province, it looked like an ocean. Entire communities gone, entire counties erased. This was not just water, this was erasure, devastation absolute, and still the rain fell. The destruction was so complete that even survivors felt half dead, their lives dissolved along with their possessions. Brazil, watching, saw not just tragedy but prophecy. If such devastation could erase Hubei, could it not erase the Amazon, the valleys of Minas, the floodplains of Rio Grande? Grief settled like a second flood. In one town, an elderly couple was swept away, their home reduced to rubble, their whereabouts unknown. In Longan County, 3 drowned in an underground garage, unable to climb fast enough as waters surged in. In schools, children's books floated in muddy corridors, ink bleeding like the tears of lost futures. Families huddled in shelters, their eyes empty, repeating the same question, where are they? Missing persons lists grew longer each day, radios crackling with names that broke hearts. A mother collapsed in despair as her son's name was read among the dead. A child clung to a muddy photograph, the last image of parents swept away. Crops gone, savings lost, communities shattered. Every household bore wounds that would never fully heal. This grief was not private, it was collective, a weight pressing down on an entire province. It was not the grief of strangers, it was human, universal, familiar. In Brazil, viewers felt a lump in their throats. They saw in China's grief their own children, their own parents, their own memories vulnerable to the same storms. The grief traveled oceans, and yet out of grief, resilience began to rise. Soldiers in camouflage carried children through waist-deep water, their faces set with grim determination. Volunteers, young and old, arrived with food, blankets, clothes, whatever they could spare. Shelters overflowed not only with the displaced but with solidarity. Neighbors housed neighbors. Teachers in shelters began tutoring displaced children, keeping minds alive even as books were lost. Firefighters braved collapsing roads and raging rivers, pulling families to safety in inflatable boats. Helicopters hovered over rooftops, winching survivors as debris swirled below. Field hospitals sprang up, doctors working sleeplessly to save those injured or sick from contamination. Drones delivered food to villages cut off by landslides. Communities, though broken, began to heal themselves from within. In candlelit rooms, families prayed together, sang together, survived together. The water still raged, the ground still crumbled, but the human spirit refused to collapse. Across Brazil, the images of resilience struck deep. In São Paulo, in Rio, in Recife, people whispered, "We would do the same. We must do the same." Resilience, like grief, was contagious. When the rains eased, silence fell, but it was ghostly, chilling. Streets caked in mud, homes reeking of mold, families staring at piles of broken furniture. Silence heavier than screams, broken only by the hum of pumps and the crackle of radios. But within that silence, determination grew. People began rebuilding, brick by brick. Teachers salvaged chalkboards from wrecked schools. Farmers replanted in soggy fields, refusing to surrender their harvests. Local businesses donated fuel, blankets, meals. Counselors sat with children, helping them find laughter again amid sorrow. Step by step, life was pulled from the mud. The determination was not just to survive, but to resist despair. "We will not leave," said one survivor. "We will stand here until our homes stand again." That spirit was unbreakable. And yet the silence still haunted. Floating debris, collapsed roads, unseen cracks in dams and hills waiting to fall again. Determination rose against a ghostly enemy that lingered still. Brazil, watching, understood. This spirit was needed not just in China, but everywhere floods and landslides could strike. Far away in Brazil, shock spread like wildfire. News anchors narrated Hubei's tragedy, but Brazilians whispered a chilling question. Could this happen here? Brazil has its own swollen rivers, its own fragile hillsides, its own neglected dams. They had seen floods before, but Hubei was something different. Water and earth moving together, crushing everything. The drowned homes, the collapsed schools, the ghostly silence, it all felt like a mirror. In São Paulo, Manaus, Rio, and countless small towns, people saw their own futures in China's grief. Climate change does not choose only one country. Negligence, corruption, overdevelopment, these are familiar demons in Brazil too. And so the disaster became more than a story abroad. It became a warning, an omen carried across oceans. Brazil trembled, not just in pity, but in fear. The reflection was too close, too chilling.